How do we stop a panic attack in its tracks? In this video, I'm going to teach you how to do that and also how to make sure you don't have any more. Let's do it. Welcome back everyone. I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach and an anxiety therapist. For the last 12 years or so, I've been working with people to help them overcome any and all sorts of anxiety-related issues. This video is all about halting panic attacks in their tracks and making sure they don't come back. Now, the second part of that equation was, funnily enough, taught to me by a client way back at the start of my career. I was visiting him at his home to do sessions back in the day when I was providing, for some reason, a local mobile service. He was talking to me about anxiety and mentioned to me that he used to suffer very bad panic attacks but didn't have them anymore. I asked what made them stop and he told me that the last one he had caused his girlfriend to call an ambulance. The paramedics arrived a few minutes later, but by that time the panic attack had passed, which is pretty common. In most cases, panic attacks pass in 5 to 10 minutes. Now, of course, my client was fervently apologetic for having wasted the ambulance crew's time. However, the senior paramedic on the crew said to him, "That's okay, it happens." He mentioned that over the years, he'd been called out to thousands of people who were in the throes of a panic attack, and every single one of them had thought their life was under threat. And why wouldn't they? Panic attacks absolutely feel life-threatening. Yet in all the years he'd been on call, he'd never seen a fatal one. You see, when we're having a panic attack and the people around us, the medical professionals, are trying to calm us by telling us we're okay and we're safe, they're not just telling us what they think we need to hear to calm us down. They're telling us the medical facts. Nobody's ever died from a panic attack. It just doesn't happen. My client said that as soon as he knew this, he never again had a panic attack. So here's why we have panic attacks. We panic because we fear panic. We fear panic because we believe panic is life-threatening, and the appropriate response to a threat on our life is panic. Once a client I see understands that it's just their fear of panic triggering a very natural fear of death, and they're not actually going to die, it's very rare that panic attacks then persist. I saw another client once who was determined that now they were armed with this knowledge, they wanted to have one more panic attack and prove to themselves that they weren't afraid and they could just stop it. However, no matter how hard they tried, no matter how many potentially triggering or anxiety-inducing situations they put themselves in, they just couldn't have a panic attack anymore. Why? Because they knew the attack couldn't hurt, harm, or threaten them. Why would they panic about something that their mind could no longer feel panicked about? But it's all very well talking about how we prevent future panic attacks. How about the times when we're in the midst of one? What do we do in those times when reason and rational thinking doesn't tend to come so easy and doesn't seem to have as much effect? I used to be terrified of roller coasters. I went on one as a kid and it scared the bejesus out of me. As a result, I would seldom go on them, and only when I was really cajoled into it by my friends. It was the plummeting from a great height part that I didn't like, that feeling of falling out of control. Then one of my friends told me about how they deal with that feeling. He said, "You need to lean into it." He told me that at the moment, as I was getting to the top of the big drop, I was starting to lean back in my seat trying to resist the fall. As a result, I just felt out of control, going in exactly the opposite direction I was telling my mind I wanted to go. He told me to instead lean forward and try to make the carriage go faster. Now, this sounded ridiculous to me, but lo and behold, when I tried it, what was previously fear suddenly became exhilaration and excitement. By leaning into the drop, I was telling my mind that I want to not only be going in this direction, but I wanted to go even faster. Suddenly, I miraculously felt more in control of this carriage on rails that I was strapped into, and the fear was gone. I'm going to pause for a few seconds to remind you that you can now become a member of the channel and receive extra content every week, including video tutorials of my full system for change with extra insights and exclusive weekly live Q&As. Just hit the join button on the homepage. The most common mistake we make when we start to feel panic overwhelm us is to try and resist it. We might deliberately attempt to slow our breathing or our heart rate, desperately trying to calm down. All this does is tell your mind that this feeling must be resisted and is therefore to be feared. By doing that, we amplify the sensations. We feed panic into panic, pile fear on top of fear. We make it worse. The more we attempt to stop the panic sensations, the more we suggest danger. What we need to do is the exact opposite. Try and make the panic worse. If we deliberately try and see how bad we can make these symptoms, we are effectively telling our mind that we're not afraid of them. To try and make them worse is to show them no fear. We send that message to our brain that we're perfectly happy to find out how bad this can feel. Maybe we're even curious, and as a result, our brain stops seeing the need to be in a panic state. There's a psychological principle coined by Aldous Huxley called the law of reversed effect that states, the harder we try with the conscious will to do something, the less we shall succeed. So in this instance, the harder we try to calm down, the less calm we become. And the harder we try to panic, the less successful we'll be in panicking. So maybe our previous efforts to stop a panic attack were failing just because we were trying too hard to do so. So the next time, if indeed there is a next time, you experience what you know to be a panic attack, maybe try something different. Instead of getting scared, get curious. Find out how bad you can make it. Get interested in how your understanding of the situation now affects your responses. See what's changed in those sensations based on what you've now learned. When we replace fear for curiosity, it becomes much harder to create panic. If you get a chance to try this out, then let me know in the comments how you went. Or maybe you found this video because you were in the midst of a panic attack. Did this help? Let me know. The perpetuation of panic attacks is another example of what we might call the anxiety feedback loop, which I talk about in a lot of my videos. For the full story on this idea, check out the video linked at the end of this one.